So day 7 of our Viking European Sojourn trip brought us to Vidin, Bulgaria. On this leg of our journey, they loaded us onto a bus right after breakfast, and we drove for about an hour to the Belogradchik Fortress and mountains, or rock formations. The Belogradchik Fortress is located on the north slope of the Balkan Mountains, and Balkan Mountains, I guess in English, stands for Old Mountain. And it's in the northwestern section of Bulgaria, and it is overlooking a town called Belogradchik. And the fortress itself is the primary tourist destination and cultural destination for people coming into the area to see. The Belogradchik Fortress tour is actually one of the included tours with Viking, so there's no extra cost to attend, and it only lasted to around 1 o'clock, from about 9 till 1. It took us an hour to get there and an hour back, so you had about 2 hours at the fortress to go through its 3 gates and reach the top if you were so inclined. Many people decided only to go to the second level, as the third level's a little more tricky to get up the stairs. But overall, even though Viking described the hike as hard, I didn't find very many people who thought it was overly difficult. Of course, if you have mobility issues or don't like heights, then it's definitely would be a different story. This is probably my most favorite spot or tour that we took with Viking on our Viking European Sojourn tour. What I really liked about it is the natural landscape, especially the natural rock formations, which was the first basis of why they put this fortress here. It's actually in a valley, so it was a natural lookout post or spot to guard to prevent invasion. But the natural setting I found really enjoyable. The Belogradchik Fortress is one of the best preserved strongholds in Bulgaria, and it's a cultural monument of national importance. The fortress walls are over 2 meters, which is 6.6 feet thick in the foundation, and they reach up over 12 meters or 39 feet in height. There are 3 separate fortified yards that exist, each separated by a gate. The first 2 sections are rather large and quite open and relatively flat, but the third section you need to take some stairs, which are actually well laid out, to go through the third gate and then climb up to the higher parts of the fortress. The fortress, I'm sure, has been repaired many times. It's in great shape. It's a real pleasure to go through. Lots of nice stairways, not a lot of tripping hazards or anything like this, so it's a pleasure to walk through. Not a real museum in terms of things to see other than the fortress and rock formations itself, but let me tell you, that's enough. What I really like about it, too, is that it's of significant importance, so significant that it's actually managed by the local historical museum authority in Bulgaria here. So one interesting aspect about the rock formations is a lot of people describe the different shapes they make. For example, this one here resembles 2 lovers, young lovers kissing. Then on the other side, people describe it as a large elephant. And this rock formation really looks like an elephant to me, with the legs here, and then right here is his head and his big ear. So at this point, we've made it through the second gate, so we're in the second level of the fortress. It's just a wide open space, and we will shortly start climbing the steps to go through the third gate, which is the top level of the fortress itself. So as you can see, the steps are actually well laid out. They're not overly steep or difficult. They do have a handrail. As I said before, I didn't find it very difficult to go up here, but if you do have some mobility issues or you're afraid of heights, the next section can be a little bit tricky, but definitely getting through the third gate to that third level is not difficult. It's just getting up to the upper reaches of the third level that some of our people in our tour group decided not to go through. But getting up into the third level was not a problem, for most people, that is. And I will say you really should get up to the third levels. The views are spectacular. You get a real good look at all the other rock formations and the different shapes that the tour guide describes. Actually very enjoyable. And you have a beautiful view of the town as well. So this is the gate into the third and final level of the fortress. It's fairly hilly once you get inside, but the lower section is reasonably flat, and it gives you panoramic views of the valley around. But more importantly, it gives you an opportunity to check out all the rock formations and the different shapes. And if you have a guide with you, as we did, they describe exactly how people have identified what these rock formations resemble.
This is the Indian or the eagle, this big rock here in front of us. It resembles a gorilla or yes.
A gorilla.
Yes, a gorilla. And this one is Queen Victoria.
So this rock looks like a gorilla.
Element is yes, but from the bottom you can see better. Here they are.
And they say this rock looks like Queen Victoria.
No, go. Don't worry about it. You decide to go down. Yes, this is the gorilla. Yeah.
So once you're in the topmost section of the fortress, you can proceed up to the next level. Still part of the third level because there's no more gates. So they had this iron step to the right, and then they had natural steps cut into the stone on the left-hand side. Either way is good. You go up a short amount of steps, probably 20, 30 at the very most. And this brings you up to another level, but it's all natural rock in this location. But the views on the lower fortress or the third level are spectacular. But if you walk around this upper level, then you're essentially on a large plateau, and you can see all the surrounding mountains, other rock formations in the city below. So a little more information about the fortress. The initial fortress was constructed during the time when the region was part of the Roman Empire. My understanding, it was more of a lookout post as opposed to a fortress, but then a fortress gradually developed from there. Now, there wasn't a lot of walls at that time when the Romans first built their tower here, because the natural rock formations served as walls or barriers. So there was just a couple of fortified walls put in place at that time. Later on in the 14th century, the Bulgarian Tsar of Vidin, I guess it's Ivan Strasmir, extended the old fortress. He built fortified garrisons in the front of the existing rock massives. During the Strasmir rule, the Belogradchik Fortress became one of the most important strongholds in the region, second only to the Tsar's capital fortress in Vidin, Baba Vita, which we'll also tour today. You'll have to catch that in my summary video or in a separate video all on its own. Now, the fort was captured or did fall when the Ottoman Turks came in. The fort was captured by the Ottomans in 1396. They were forced to further expand the stronghold due to the intensified Hajduk and insurrection activity in the region, and then considerable changes in the fortress were made in the early 19th century. And the 19th century changes are all the fortified walls that you see on the second and, I should say, the first and second level. So they're things that you would normally see at that period of time rather than the rougher walls or natural walls on the third level. Now, the Ottoman Turks controlled this area for a long time. The stronghold had an important role in the suppression of the Bulgarian people by the Ottomans all the way up to the Belogradchik uprising in 1850. And then it was last used in the war fort during the Serbian-Bulgarian War in 1885.
Don't go any further.
Absolutely spectacular. think that's the second gate. So after touring the top part of the fortress on the third level, we headed on back down to the lower section because I wanted to go to the actual fortified wall above the gate and check out that type of construction. This was the middle of September, and we were really fortunate. We had started off the day a little overcast, a little bit of rain as we drove up, but the skies cleared. We had some beautiful blue sky here, nice sunny day, nice and warm, just perfect for walking around and exploring. So at this point, we've made it to the opposite end of the fortress on the third level, and we're standing above the third gate. You can see the second gate down below. So this is the major part of the constructed fortifications. The other half of the third level here is all just natural rock and cliffs, so there was no need to build fortifications. What was interesting is that we actually found a couple of natural wells that they dug here. So I guess not natural, they had to dig some wells, and there was still water in them, so they actually were quite self-sufficient here if they were attacked and sieged. So in addition to the walls here, the couple of wells that I'll show you here a little bit later, they had this one little storage area. Other than that, no buildings here. I don't know if there was buildings at any time, but it doesn't look like it because we didn't see any foundations to that. Anyways, the highlight of this particular tour is looking at all the rock formations and then what they built in terms of fortifications. I don't think I've ever seen a natural sort of fort like this, especially knowing the history that it started in the 1st century AD with the Romans and then was gradually built on from there. I guess the major construction happened in the 13th and 14th century, but this initial section being built by the Romans, using it as a watchtower or guard tower, is just so incredible to learn about. So this is one of the two wells that we found here. Obviously not very big, but it does look like it was bored down fairly deep. So the fortress did have water in the event of a siege. And if you look across the valley here, it looks like they had another set of fortifications across that portion of the valley. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in the Viking European Sojourn tour, you might want to watch some of the other videos in this series as I go through each day of that tour.